Hi guys, Rahul Shah here, trying to make investing accessible and profitable for the average investing. Now, there's a WhatsApp message that's becoming very popular. Uh, this message has been doing the rounds on WhatsApp for the past few days, and it talks about the stellar performance put in by the Tata Group companies in the current bull market. It talks about 12 stocks from the Tata stable that have done phenomenally well between March 2020 and August 2021. So what I've done is I've put the price data of these companies onto an Excel sheet and try to analyze the performance, or try to have a closer look at the performance. So this is the table that I'm talking about. 12 companies, the performance of 12 Tata Group companies ranked in descending order. So those are pretty impressive numbers, especially when you consider the time period in which these returns have been achieved. The star performer, of course, has been Tata Teleservices, up a whopping 20 times. Tata Elxsi, one of the darlings of the current bull run, is up more than 7 times. Tata Communications, 6-bagger. Tata Steel, nearly a 6-bagger. Tata Steel, 5-bagger. Tata Steel Long Products. And going all the way to Tata Consultancy Services, the last name on the list, which is up almost 100% between March 20 and August 2021. These are definitely impressive numbers, but have they done well, or has a portfolio of these 12 companies done well vis-a-vis the benchmark index during the same time period? We have seen a massive bull market in the stock market since March 2020. Everything is up 3, 4, 5 times. Therefore, the real test of the performance of these Tata Group companies is whether these companies as a group, they have been able to outperform the benchmark indices, which is what you have in the next slide, the comparison between these 12 companies, the performance, and the BSE small cap and the other indices. Now, these 12 companies, if you would have invested rupees 100 in each of these companies back in March 2020, your corpus would have multiplied almost 5 times. BSE small cap index, which I think is the right benchmark to compare against, because almost 8 to 9 of the 12 companies, they are part of the BSE small cap index. So instead of the BSE mid cap or the BSE Sensex, the BSE small cap index is the right benchmark or the right yardstick to compare against. And collectively, 12 companies, they have definitely done better than the BSE small cap index, which is a massive outperformance of 70-80%. BSE small cap index is up almost 3 times, whereas the Tata Group companies, 12 companies, are up almost 5 times. Now, here's the surprising element. If you exclude the performance of Tata Teleservices, then the performance of the Tata Group companies falls dramatically and brings it very close to the performance of the BSE small cap index. Now, why should you exclude Tata Teleservices? Now, the reason you should exclude Tata Teleservices is because no one would have dared to invest. No one would have had the courage to invest in the company back in March 2020 because of the extremely bad fundamentals the company had. Tata Teleservices, back in March 2020 had a history of 10 consecutive years of losses. Because of these losses, the net worth has been completely wiped out. The net worth, I think, is in the negative. It has a huge debt on its balance sheet. Absolutely poor fundamentals. Therefore, it is only fair that we exclude the performance of Tata Teleservices from this group and then compare it with BSE small cap index, because no one in his right mind would have dared to invest in Tata Teleservices back in March 2020. So there is still some outperformance even if you exclude Tata Teleservices, but the outperformance falls dramatically. It's only to the extent of 20-25% vis-a-vis the BSE small cap index. So although the Tata Group companies have done well, on a relative basis, the performance is not that great. Now what I have done in the next slide is I have broadened the horizon a bit in order to find out whether the Tata Group as a collective, as a group of 28 companies that it has, whether on a collective basis the company has been able to outperform the benchmark index over a 3-year, 5-year and a 10-year horizon, whether the group has been a wealth creator over a 3-year, 5-year and a 10-year period, or has it been a wealth destroyer, or has it been wealth neutral in the sense that the performance is almost similar to the benchmark indices, the BSE small cap and the BSE Sensex. As you can see, when it comes to a 3-year or a 5-year performance of these 28 companies is pretty much neck and neck with the BSE small cap and the BSE Sensex. In fact, these 28 companies have outperformed slightly. An equal weighted portfolio of these 28 companies would have outperformed the benchmark indices only to a small extent. But the story changes when it comes to the 10-year performance of the group. On a 10-year basis, Tata Group companies have returned an impressive, has given an impressive 6 times returns. Every rupees 100 would have become 600 in these 28 companies, thus improving the outperformance by a significant margin. Now there's another interesting twist here. A lot of those 6-bagger returns of the Tata Group companies has been driven by one stock alone, which is Tata Elxsi. Tata Elxsi is up anywhere between 45 to 50 times over the last 10 years and has played a key role in the outperformance of the Tata Group companies. So therefore, if you exclude the performance of Tata Elxsi, then the outperformance vis-a-vis the benchmark indices, falls down dramatically. A significant outperformance now turns into only a marginal outperformance. Excluding Tata Elxsi, the Tata Group companies would have given you 4-fold returns, which is more or less similar to what the BSE small cap index would have given you, and only slightly greater than what the Sensex would have given you. So we saw the performance of those 12 companies in the current bull market. We saw the performance of the 28 companies over a 3-year, 5-year and a 10-year period vis-a-vis the benchmark indices. Now, based on this small study, there are some takeaways which I think are worth remembering or worth keeping in mind when you try and invest in Tata Group companies. Now, my takeaways from the studies, the short study that we just did, is that as a group, the Tata Group does have the potential to outperform the market over a long-term period, especially over a 10-year period where we saw the group outperforming the benchmark index and putting in those 6x, multiplying the corpus by 6 times. But for that to happen, it needs a star performer. It needs a Tata Elxsi or it needs a Titan every few years. The performance of the Tata Group companies, the outperformance rather, was driven to a great extent by Tata Elxsi in the last decade, where Tata Elxsi was up almost 50 times. And I'm sure in the decade before that, the outperformance, if at all was there, would have been driven by Titan, which I think did phenomenally well in the previous decade, that is between 2001 and 2010. Therefore, for this outperformance to continue, the group will have to invest in new businesses, and it will have to have 1 or 2 stocks from these businesses to do remarkably well over a 10-year period. It needs to have a 40, 50, 100 bagger every few years for the group to really excel and try and outperform the benchmark index. Another key takeaway is, just as Tata Elxsi was a massive outperformer, there were 17 stocks out of the 28 group companies that are part of the Tata Group which underperformed the benchmark index. Now, this is the risk with taking a selective approach or picking individual stocks from the Tata Group companies. If you are going to think that I'm not going to invest in 28 stocks, but I'm going to make a portfolio of 12 to 15 stocks, which I think are best placed to outperform the benchmark index. There is a strong chance that that portfolio might not end up outperforming, but it may end up underperforming the benchmark index because, as we saw, or as I saw in my study, 17 of the more than half of the group companies, they underperform the benchmark index. Therefore, if you don't want to take that risk of underperformance, if you want to play it safe, it's important for you to invest in each of the 28 Tata Group companies rather than pick and choose. Last but not the least, investing in the group does allow you to sleep well at night. I think, the way the Tata Group has conducted its business over the last decades, it's, very inspiring. It has a history of rewarding shareholders. It has a history of following good corporate governance practices. Investing in the group companies to an Indian, I think, gives a kind of comfort which is missing in most other groups. It allows us to sleep well at night knowing that our money is safe. It may not grow significantly or it may not end up outperforming the benchmark index, but it will definitely protect the downside because of the history that the Tata Group has, the history of always doing right by the shareholders, always treating all its stakeholders well, and that act of the group, or the way that group has behaved over the past few decades, gives a lot of confidence. So your downside is protected, or has a high chance of being protected if you invest in Tata Group companies. On the upside, though, you need a lot of factors to fall in place for the group to have a performance which will allow it to beat the stock market or beat the benchmark index from a long-term perspective. So those were my 2 cents on the Tata Group company based on studying the performance of the 28 group companies over a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year period. So do tell me, what do you think of these takeaways? Do you agree with these takeaways, or do you not agree with these takeaways? You have your own takeaways. Do post them in the comment section. I think it will be a great learning experience for all of us. So I'll await your comments on this video, and particularly on the takeaways. So this is all from me today. I'll see you again next time. Thank you so much.
This is it. The only 20 stocks to own forever. Click here to reserve your free spot for our special event on Forever Stocks on 21st June at 5 p.m. IST.